Hello, Nightlings, and welcome to episode 9 of the Horror Headquarters. Now, I created this podcast because I love talking about horror, I love discussing my own horror experiences, and it just is used for my escape from the real world. I just love it. It makes me happy. It makes me feel like my life has worth outside of like acting and singing, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. Now, with that being said, I have to discuss something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is the genocide that is taking place in Palestine and that has been taking place in Palestine for the past 70 years plus. It's absolutely heart wrenching to see all the videos and pictures of what's occurring over there, whether that's from people that live over there or from journalists that are over there trying to get information on what's going on. But it's horrifying. It is just terrible, and it's something very difficult to talk about, but I gotta push myself through it to discuss it. And I promise I won't take more than a couple minutes of your time talking about this. But please educate yourselves. Like, I can't emphasize that enough. Educate yourself. Look at a non biased article, person, anything. There's so many out there because I promise you there's not two sides to this. There's one side, and that's the side of human lives, of human innocent lives that are caught within a crossfire of what's going on in Palestine. I'm sorry, this is very difficult to discuss, and I shouldn't even be struggling to talk about it because I can't imagine the lives of people who have lost someone over there, who have seen their siblings get killed, their parents get killed, have seen the images and everything going on, the disarray. It's just horrifying to even think about, but my deepest condolences and prayers to everyone that's been affected by this. And I really hope this comes to a conclusion very, very soon because this has been 70 plus years too long. This shouldn't have even lasted a day, a year, a minute because this is genocide and this is happening and there is no denying it. I have been educating myself ever since I was old enough to start understanding it, and the issue just continues to worsen. So please educate yourselves and just take care. I mean, if you're seeing a lot of this media, it is good to take some social media breaks for your guys' mental health because that is definitely very crucial and very important to take care of yourselves in these situations. Tell your friends you love them, tell your family you love them, reach out to people that have been affected, tell them that you have their support, you are supporting them throughout this whole ordeal. And please take care of yourselves, as I've said, because this is a very difficult subject to be discussing, but it needs to be said, it needs to be known, because there is no looking away from this, there is no backing down from the truth. The media can be very, very misleading at times, so you have to make sure that guys you're looking at reliable resources, and they are out there. Do your research. This is not a political issue. This is not a complicated issue. This isn't something that's rocket science. It's so clear. Just do your research and educate others if you are educated on this subject. Don't be silent. This needs to end as soon as possible. But I'm going to stop there. Take care of your guys' selves. I'm praying for peace and love for everyone. And my deepest condolences to everyone that has lost someone or is struggling during this time. I'm there, right there with you. And no matter how big or small your platform is, I have 43 Spotify followers. I don't care. I know I can make a difference. I know I can talk to this small amount of people and get them to listen. And if I lose followers over this, that's fine. I'm not gonna get upset and go cry because this is something that needs to be said. Now, I did have a whole episode planned out for today. I was going to be talking about my favorite movie of all time, and especially something that I love watching around Halloween time and fall time, but I'm gonna save that for another week. Hopefully, I'll be talking about it this month of October. If not this month, then definitely next month because it is a phenomenal film, so underrated, and I absolutely love it. But today's topic is going to be on a new Netflix series that just released recently, The Fall of the House of Usher. Now, of course, I can't give a proper consensus on the entire series as a whole because I've only watched the first episode, but I definitely want to give my initial thoughts on the episode because I thought it was very all over the place in a good way, but there were some things that really like rubbed me the wrong way that I wanted to talk about. And this is something that just recently came out and something that's been on my list for so long because I've been watching the trailers and everything has been leading up to this moment. So I just want to give my initial thoughts on the first episode so far. But again, this is not a proper review. This is more of, like I said, first thoughts, what I thought about the first episode, where I think it's gonna go. The Fall of the House of Usher was created by Mike Flanagan based on the stories of Edgar Allan Poe. It premiered on October 12, 2023 on Netflix. It has a star-studded cast that I am all looking at right now on my screen because if you guys have watched other creations by Mike Flanagan, you would recognize a lot of familiar faces, including but not limited to Kate Siegel, Carla Cugino, Henry Thomas, Samantha Sloan, and Rahul Kohli. Now, they all play such different characters than the other series that they were in, which I love about these type of series because like they always play something differently. It's kind of giving American Horror Story vibes, but in the best way because American Horror Story reuses a lot of similar actors and actresses, but when they do it correctly, it's just an absolute work of art. And I'm just gonna dive right into it. I actually very much enjoyed the first episode, but there were some things that I cannot look past yet. Like I said, this is just a first impression, so this is like just initial thoughts. I'm sorry if this is contradictory to what I say when I finish the entire series, but there was just so much talking. Like, oh my god, I'm sorry. I hate when the story carries on with only talking and there's like not any action taking place. That's a huge turnoff for me. Personally, I just don't enjoy that. I can't explain it enough, but I really, really, really dislike it. Now, another thing that I tend to dislike when I'm watching a series or movie is when they start at the end of the film. I hate that. Sometimes, of course, I'm not going to be 100% like against that because there are some times where a film includes that and it ends up working out in the end. But I'm just saying from my perspective, whenever I watch a series or movie and they start at the end of the film, it's just a huge turnoff for me. I just extremely dislike it because I'm like, okay, you're ruining the ending for me, and now I have to see how we got there. But like I said, there are some cases where it's very interesting. But I hate in general when they do that. But I'm not gonna be 100% totally biased because you know what? It's Mike Flanagan, and he did this in The Haunting of Hill House and in The Haunting of Bly Manor, and that's something that he's like used to doing, and he actually does it very well. But it's just when I see them start at the end of a film or TV series, I'm like, no, please, 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 just start from the beginning, build the foundation, please. But you know what? Mike Flanagan's building a foundation. I'm gonna trust myself that he's building a foundation because I know he's a phenomenal creator and director, and he has made some amazing works of art, so I'm not going to judge. And with the amazing cast that this series has, I know it's going to be great. I mean, freaking Carla Cugino is in it, and she is absolutely phenomenal. She always goes up and above the bar and kills it every single time. So I'm excited to see the development of her character in particular. But I'll get more into that when we discuss the episode as a whole. Now, besides talking about the things that I absolutely hated, I do want to talk about things that I adored about this episode in particular, and that is I loved the death scene. And like I think it was the middle of the episode when Roderick Usher, who is like the main Usher, he's like the father of all his kids and they're all Ushers, but he's like the main one. He's in the beginning giving the backstory and everything. Like I said, it started at the end. But there's like a scene where he was like younger and his mother was like very against like doctors and medicine. She just liked everything to be natural, and she was very religious. Like she had crosses all over her house. And there's a scene where she ends up dying in her bed because like she didn't want to call a doctor. She didn't want her kids to call a doctor. And, like she told them, "Don't call a doctor. How dare you like ruin your body like that? Put things in your body that are toxic." I'm like, "Oof, okay, relax." But there's this guy that she works for, and his name is Mr. Longfellow, and he is an A word. He's very rude, he's very greedy, he's very money hungry, and he doesn't give an S word about anyone else in the company but himself and his wife. So, anyways, the mother is always telling her two kids, who are Roderick Usher and Madeline Usher, like, stay away from this house, don't go over there, don't get involved in any of that kind of stuff. And they end up doing it one time. They disobey their mother's rules, and then later when the mother dies, they end up burying her in the backyard because, like I said, she doesn't like doctors or hospitals or anything like that, and she likes everything all natural. So they make her a burial out of wood, like a wood casket, and they bury her in the backyard. And thinking that she's dead, they look in the backyard like when it's raining outside, and she's missing. The casket has been broken out of, and the scariest freaking part scared the shit out of me because it was terrifying. It's that classic horror scare where there's a character that's like, "What's that?" and like they put their hand up very slowly, pointing at someone. They're either behind you or they're like in front of you, but you're not looking directly at them. And that's what happened. The girl saw the mother like all disfigured and everything. Like she looked terrible, standing behind Roderick. Like this, like I said, this is all like like when they were younger. Like I think they were like almost teenagers, a little bit younger maybe. But she sees the mother standing right behind Roderick, and then like a flash of lightning happens, and I see her face, and she goes and she chokes Roderick. I'm like, oh hell no. It was bad, but I actually ended up loving it, and I'm gonna tell you why. So long story short, the mother is basically back from the dead and she looks horrific. And she walks towards Mr. Longfellow's house. The house that she told her kids to never step foot on, step foot in, get near. She goes over there, she whips open the gates, and she's walking straight in like a straight line towards Mr. Longfellow. Like he's outside flashing, he's like flashing a light on her, like, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" And then he realizes who it is, and then she tackles him, chokes him to death, and kills him. And as soon as she does that, then she like dies for real, for real. And she passes out, and then the wife like runs out screaming because like she sees everything that occurred. But I loved that because poetic justice right there. He deserved it. I mean, if you've watched the first episode, you would know that that he deserved to die because of what an ass he was. Because he was the biggest ass. I just said ass. I'm not gonna say a word. I'm just gonna put explicit on this episode now. But it was so good. I'm like, oh yes, he deserved it. But it was so like it came out of nowhere, and I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, your mother's haunted. How does this incorporate into the story? And then, of course, later on in the series, we'll eventually find out the entirety of it. But I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed that. It was so much fun to see and watch, and it made me very excited for the rest of the episode. I'm like, okay, if this is just like the middle, like beginning of the episode, can't wait to see how it plays out. Now, as I've said, there is so much jumping around, and from what happens in the first episode is when like he's confessing basically to this the United States Secretary General or like Assistant Secretary General or something. I don't know what he is, but basically Roderick is confessing to the Secretary General or whatever right now about like how all his kids died, and he's like, "No, I know how your kids died. Like they did an autopsy of everything." And he's like, "No, you don't. Trust me, you don't know a goddamn thing." And like he goes about this whole thing, and then it jumps back 2 weeks before this whole conversation, when the entire family's in court and they're getting sued for like the pharmaceutical company and like doing really bad stuff. And towards the end of the scene, the guy is like, "We have a witness that is in your bloodline that told us all your secrets, all the things you have been doing, all the horrors." And then they're all suddenly shocked, and then they dismiss the court and they're like, "Okay, we'll save this for a later time. We can't disclose the witness right now." So then it goes to like this whole dinner scene with the entirety of the family, of the Usher family, and they're trying to figure out who it is. And then Roderick Usher, who is like the father of all his kids and family and everything, he stands up and he says, $50 million to whoever can find out who the whistleblower is. No strings attached, no taxes. And then suddenly the entire family's interested. They're like, "Oh, okay, we need to find out who it is." And that's like kind of where it cuts off. And then from that scene to present day, that's when all the kids end up dying. So it's kind of interesting to see how that'll all play out throughout like the rest of the series. But I'm like, $50 million, like that's a lot of money. But it was good because we finally saw Kate Siegel and like all the main characters, all at the dinner scene. Like they're all so different and I love it. And the acting was like phenomenal, and like they were exchanging very well. It literally felt like a real family that like is money greedy and then like they're all asses, but I loved it and I'm excited to see it play out. Now, before we end today, I do want to say that there was one scene in this episode that completely locked me into the series, and it was the ending scene. Because the ending scene of the first episode was a repeat of the beginning scene of how it opened with the funeral of three of his kids, which is how it opened when I said like it started at the end, because this is present day, but the story starts 2 weeks ago, like a while ago, like when everything was transpiring and like they were trying to find out who the whistleblower was. But the ending scene was absolutely amazing, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I always say that I'm not gonna like something, and then I'm like, no, this is by Mike Flanagan. It's gonna be phenomenal, and it was phenomenal. At this funeral scene, Roderick Usher turns around and he sees Carla Cugino standing on the balcony right behind him in the church, and his like granddaughter's looking at him and is like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "She's here." And she looks behind her and she doesn't see anyone. But I'm like, oh, what is Carla Cugino's character, whose her name is Verna, what does like she have to do with like this whole story? And we'll end up finding out like what it is. Like they talked a little bit about in the episode, but I don't really want to discuss it because I didn't like understand it entirely. But anyways, after this whole scene, he walks out, and there's all these photographers and videographers like taking pictures of him because like obviously he's like a trillionaire, billionaire, whatever. And he just lost all his kids, so they're trying to get pictures and everything, trying to get the story. There's an ongoing investigation, and he's walking down like, and then someone opens the door for him to his car to leave, and inside the freaking car is a clown. I wish I was lying. I wish I was lying. There's a freaky clown in the back seat staring at him, and then his nose starts bleeding, and he passes out and he falls to the ground, bleeding. And then his sister runs over, who's Madeline Usher, runs over. She's like freaking out, and she's telling this like lawyer, who's played by Mark Hamill, like call a bus or like whatever to pick him up, make sure it's non-disclosed, make sure they don't know who they're picking up, make sure they're off the radar, make sure they're away from traffic, all this stuff. Like, I'm like, wow, how detailed this ending was. Like, she's so smart, and like, wow, this family knows what they're doing. They're very intelligent. And I'm like, wow. But like, obviously there's so much more stuff that she says. But then Roderick Usher says 3 times which if you guys don't know what the 3 rule is, search it up or listen to my previous episode, which was Friday the 13th, where I talk about the rule of 3, where he says, it's time, it's time, it's time, and then blackout. Oh, such an amazing ending. And it helped wrap up a lot of the episode. I'm like, oh my god, I have to see what happens next now. But I loved it. It was a great ending to a very all over the place episode. But it made sense because it connects back to the beginning. So I loved it. Now there was 2 different polls that you guys voted on for the 2 previous episodes. There was the one on Wednesday, which was the Nun 2 Part 2, and then the special episode that I released on Friday, which was Friday the 13th, which was something that you guys wanted. You guys requested that I do Friday the 13th on Friday the 13th, and so I delivered. So there was 2 different polls, but I'm going to go with the first one, which was on the Nun 2 Part 2. Now the question was, when did you last watch a horror film? And there were 7 different options. There was one that said watching one right now, yesterday, a week ago, a while now, maybe over 2 months, a year, not a fan of them, and then only watch in October. And the winner was yesterday. And I wish I made this question more discreet because yesterday could mean anything. It could mean when I released the episode, which would have been Thursday, it could have been Friday, it could have been Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So I will definitely be more discreet when I do this poll again. But that was first place. Second place was watching one right now. Love you guys for doing that. Third place was actually tied between a week ago and a while now. Fourth place was maybe over 2 months and only watch in October. And then last place was a year. Not a fan of them. Like, how can you vote for that one? You guys are crazy. But you know what? I respect that. I respect your opinion. To each their own. I personally love horror films. Sure, I can't watch one every single day, but if I could, I would. But I respect that. Now, for the Friday the 13th episode, the question was, do you think Friday the 13th is a good film? And there was 5 options to this one, and the winner was absolutely with 4 votes. But second place was tied between 2 options, between one of my favorites and wish it was scarier. And third place was also tied between don't get the hype and haven't watched it yet. So I can't say that majority of people thought it was a great film because it's kind of all over the place, even though the winner was absolutely by like 1 vote. So I'm definitely going to be redoing this whenever I watch the film again. Or, excuse me, hold on. There's like an entire freaking universe of Friday the 13th films. So either whenever I watch the next one that like immediately follows it, which is like a part 2 or something, or whenever I finish the entire universe as a whole, then I'll be like, do you guys enjoy Friday the 13th? But we'll see. We'll talk about that when we get there. But for now, thank you guys so much for voting on both of these polls and leaving so many horror recommendations. Thank you guys so much. I really, really appreciate you guys. Now don't pass out. This is the ending of episode 9 of the Horror Headquarters. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you got this far, I really appreciate this. You guys being here, listening to me talk about horror and things that I really care about. I really do appreciate it. And I'm going to say that until forever. Like, I'm never gonna stop saying that. Whenever I'm reminded of it, I'm gonna tell you guys that I appreciate you guys for listening. Because no matter how small of an audience I have listening, I appreciate every single bit of you guys for streaming, for sharing to friends, for telling people about me. And I'm just so grateful and I love doing this. And I cannot thank you guys enough because I would not being here if it wasn't for you guys supporting me and rating the podcast on Spotify and Apple Music and like leaving amazing reviews. And like, you guys are so sweet. So thank you to everyone who has done that. If you haven't yet, please, please, please rate us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I would very much appreciate it. And this shows Spotify that you guys are enjoying my show. And yeah, thank you guys. I finally have some really great news, which is that the website is done. It's like on a test run right now. I will be linking it in this episode below in the description so you guys can check it out. Let me know what you guys think and sign up for subscriptions on like emails. It's free. It's not charged. You just put your email in, and anytime I have an announcement coming up, if I'm talking about merch or about anything else, I would definitely be putting it in the email. And I appreciate you guys for doing that. It's just on the main page. You scroll all the way down and it'll say like subscribe to like our email newsletter and everything. And I will be sending out some things to you guys, you know, some secret things. You guys will get hints at what the next episode is. So it's very exclusive and it's free. So make sure you guys sign up for that. So that's something I'm very excited about besides the merch that I've just ordered. I'm actually doing a test run on that as well, see how it comes out. And then I'll send out a Google form to all you guys, see if you guys are interested in purchasing some. If I get enough responses, then I'll probably order more, but we'll see. We'll see. But I'm very excited for where this podcast is going. Thank you guys so much for participating and everything, for listening. And keep in mind, there is a poll and a Q&A below this episode on Spotify. Now, if you don't have Spotify, once again, it is free. All you need is an email to sign up. You don't even need to put the password of your email. You just need the email, and then you create a password, and you're good. And you can sign in, you can follow us, you can rate us, you can participate in the polls, all of that jazz. So make sure that you guys look into that. Once again, thank you guys so much. But until next time, tread very lightly and pray for forgiveness. Midnight hour is approaching.